Hello, Wildlanders. If you haven't noticed recently, Liam, Kai, and myself have been doing a Wildlander community hour where we discuss a wide range of topics. The full VODs for those streams are on Liamhdev's channel. This video is just covering some of the more funny moments or interesting topics that we discussed in more of a bite-sized pack. If you enjoyed, leave a like, consider subscribing. Stay safe, Wildlanders.
So Arcade's Commandment, that is a Requiem pack, correct?
Yeah.
How do you think it compares to Wildlander in terms of being a Requiem pack?
Wildlander again is like, yeah, it's got a lot more of those like life sim elements, while Arcade's Commandment is just, I think it's really even aimed at like people who played other Requiem challenging lists, because there's a couple out there, but they wanted like an additional challenge. And also the thing with the Alduin destroying the world after 1 year, it's actually like the year takes longer to pass than you would expect, so it's like you actually do have to, like, the actual difficult thing is just reaching that point, of course. But yeah, I think that like, also just visually, Arcade's Commandment just didn't look anything like Wildlander from like an aesthetic.
You mean like from a graphical perspective?
Yeah, like from a graphic perspective too.
I definitely think Wildlander has like a really clean aesthetic, which is kind of underappreciated, because I don't know what the pack name is, but there's this Wildlander pack which just is like pure graphics, and I looked at it and I looked at the screenshots and compared it to Wildlander. I think it might have been Elysium, and I preferred the Wildlander aesthetics so much more because it had like a strong visual direction as opposed to just packing insane amounts of resolution into its textures.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of what looks good by itself.
Yeah.
Even though they're both Requiemless, I think it's a different kind of thing. It's like, I think it's really for like veteran Requiem players, or even just people who want like a masochistic challenge and want to min-max a build and just like destroy as many enemies as they can with that, and like see how far they can go, which is like pretty fun. And I tried it, but I just found it really difficult, and I didn't like that there wasn't as many ways that I could improve my character that I was used to in Wildlander, where I could like go use a training dummy or study a book or do spell research or whatever.
Spell research, oh god.
I felt like Arcade's Commandment had a different focus than Wildlander, whereas Wildlander was more on realism and sort of immersion. I felt like Arcade's Commandment was focused specifically on hardcore. You know, how can we make this as hardcore as possible? And there's a certain level of rush that you can get from playing that, because, you know, beating even just a wolf is actually a huge feat. Even in Wildlander, where it's tough to kill wolves, I would say it's like twice as difficult. Correct me if you feel differently, Kai, but I felt like most things were twice as difficult as they are in Wildlander, which can make you feel super powerful when you're able to take them on. So
yeah, there was like, I just remember dying a lot.
We were talking about, you know, Requiem versus other overhauls, talking about stuff like Enei Rim, which focuses a lot on the power fantasy aspect. How do you think that works in a game like Skyrim versus when you change it completely more to something like Requiem, which is a much more hardcore experience? What do you think you prefer?
Yeah, I definitely prefer the Requiem hardcore experience. I don't know, it's a preference. I think that when there's a challenge, it's like I actually feel like a reward in my brain centers from beating like something, when I feel like I had to prepare for it and like give it some effort, rather than like just
being given it
and then running amok with it, which can be fun. It's fun to blow off steam in some games by just like running amok and destroying everything in sight.
I think, and I'm a little biased in saying this, obviously, but I think Wildlander kind of explains what do you want from both ends. Like, what do you want from a power fantasy, and what do you want from immersion? Because Wildlander is incredibly rewarding. You can become this god that, from what I understand, even, you know, if you do it right, you can just destroy Merak without even struggling if you do, you know, all the things you need to. So from that end, you kind of get that power fantasy, which is something I enjoy, but you also have to work for it. And then if you get lost in your story as well, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, if that makes sense.
So alchemy is something that I like to complain about a lot.
6.5 hours later.
So you have this system where you take one ingredient and combine it with one other ingredient, and you produce a potion. And on paper, that does not seem bad, right? And in Morrowind, it wasn't that bad. The problem is that when you are playing Skyrim, you pick up 100 alchemy ingredients a day.
That's it?
Well, you might pick up 100 nodes.
Oh
of
yeah, those are
ingredients.
rookie numbers. You got to get those numbers up.
Yeah.
You are going to come home with hundreds of alchemy ingredients. So you're going to come home and you're going to make 100 healing potions. So that the next time you adventure, both the actual in-game money economy is completely destroyed because you've made 10,000 gold off of one day of adventuring, and not even the adventuring, you've made 10,000 gold off of picking up flowers, right? And the healing economy is destroyed because suddenly you have 100 potions which heal you for 5 points for 10 seconds or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So how would you fix this system?
There should be a skill check when you go to harvest from an ingredient, and also you shouldn't get as many ingredients every time. Like if I have 20 in alchemy, I should just have like a 20% chance to find anything of value when I go to pick something. Or just make it so that sometimes like there's a bit more of a skill check on harvesting itself, how good you are at harvesting. Because right now, it's just like, alright, we're just going to go outside the city gates, and then we're just going to run around and pick every single thing we get, and then we're going to eat one of each as long as we get the perk points, then we can make a billion potions, like... And it doesn't really matter, it doesn't matter if they're impure, it doesn't matter if they're nonsense, like, people will still pay me like 100 gold for this poison of damage magicka regeneration, or whatever the hell I made.
I think
It's not fun either.
Strong nerf. No, it's not fun, which I think is a pretty important fucking point.
F is for friends who do stuff together.
Is that going out and pressing E on a bunch of flowers is not fun.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how broken it is. I don't care if it destroys the game, if I'm at least having fun with it. But I feel like it loses, like, it fails at every step of, you know, of the test. And that's what does it for me. So here's a question. But do you think that alchemy is actually savable, or it's more just like putting a band-aid on you know, like, on getting your arm cut off or something? Because the more I think about alchemy, I'm like, it has problems at every step of the way. Like, even thinking about, okay, we have to balance these potions, we have to make it a rewarding experience, you know, it messes with the economy. There were a couple other things as well. Like, do you think it's even fixable?
It definitely something needs to be changed. I think everything we've talked about here are like good steps in the right direction. But
I think if you're gonna quote unquote fix alchemy, properly fix alchemy, you need a full overhaul. I don't think you can take Skyrim's alchemy system and turn it into something usable. I think it needs a full rework, which might be slightly outside the scope of Wildlander. I do think that there are things that can be done to make it a bit better, but I do think, like what SK said, I think it's putting a band-aid over a dismemberment.
Why can I make any type of potion with one alchemy? Like, I agree. You would have to... I feel like to fix it, and I don't disagree that doing some things to make it less bad would be great, but to really fix it, I agree. You have to do an entire overhaul to the system and just the components inside, and you have to take into account so much, especially for a world like Wildlander that is so detail-oriented.
Okay, I think we've talked enough about alchemy. I think we should move on, because we've been talking about alchemy for like 20 minutes now.
6.5 hours later.
Next up, something which is very close to the heart of, I'd say, every Requiem player, is permadeath / dead is dead runs. Now, you guys are both doing this sort of playthrough. How would you say you approach creating a dead is dead style playthrough?
I like to focus on the character and like kind of their story, and I try to give them generally like sort of a goal, but it's usually that goal breaks down into a bunch of smaller objectives like that I just feel make sense with the role play.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when I make my content, I like to be kind of telling a story almost. I like to add in some cinematics and stuff. But when I'm just like, if I'm just approaching it as a playthrough, I like to think like, what is the build for the character? Where are they going to start? And what are some of the early things that I can try? A lot of times, like, I try to align them with a deity, so it's either a Daedra or one of the divines,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of that usually becomes part of the story somehow. Like they guide them along, or they send them like quests or missions or whatever, visions, and yeah, and that kind of helps with the story. And in Elder Scrolls, everyone has there's all kinds of gods doing stuff, so it makes sense.
Oh yeah.
And then I just find a place where I want to start with them, and like where are they starting? Are they camping in the wilds? Are they just arriving? Are they just arriving in Skyrim from somewhere else in Tamriel? It's usually like they come to Skyrim from somewhere else, so they're like a newcomer.
In terms of permadeath, like for me, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, definitely. I play every week, so I'm a huge nerd.
So for me, I treat it like creating a level 1 character in that game, right? I'm like, okay, what are some quirky things about my character? So right now I'm playing a character who he's sort of like Frieza from Dragon Ball in terms of he's very powerful.
Yeah.
He is like ugly in the way he talks to people and stuff.
Takes a lot to perish. I will make sure of that. Don't bother trying to escape. You're going to die.
But my character's also a cannibal. Like I play a wood elf, so like he's a cannibal and he takes relish in like eating his people. So like from the roleplay portion, I build it that way. From the permadeath, I'm like, okay, what do I want to play that would be fun, that's viable, and I cut off the options that aren't. So like bow, right? Like bow and arrow. If I'm going to try sneaking and stuff, I'm like, okay, what can I do? And so for me, I think I played a two-handed, I played a board and sword, and now I'm playing a mage. I also try and pick a place where whatever skill set I choose is going to thrive. If you move at the speed of slow because you're in heavy armor, I don't recommend starting in a cold climate because you're just going to freeze to death.
Yeah.
Like that was a big thing because there's weather in this game, and like even basic enemies can take you out. You kind of need to pick a safe like starting location, one of the easier places like Whiterun or something.
Yes, definitely. I think Whiterun Tavern is the easiest start by far.
But yeah, I'd be down with if SK is down to talk more about like how I go about like making content and
Oh, please do.
Let's plays and stuff, because it seems like a lot of people are really interested in making their own or starting their own Let's Plays. For like obviously I use OBS to record my stuff. Definitely making sure that like my settings are good. I actually keep my voice a
lot higher than the game audio
because it's like 12.5 for voice and like -10 for the game audio because it's so loud. So just make sure your settings are all good and stuff. But I use DaVinci Resolve as my video editor, and it's a free edit editor, and it lets you edit up to 4K quality. So it's like pretty good, and it has a lot of good transitions and titles and stuff like that, and it's totally free. Definitely, if you have good video and audio quality, people will enjoy your content a lot more than if it's like, you know, low quality. Like it sounds obvious, but it really makes a big difference.
It does, I think. Especially having like higher resolution content going up to like 2K, 4K.
Yeah, like when you go above 1080p, it looks a lot crisper.
Especially on YouTube, because YouTube has the processor for 1080p is actually a far lower quality one than for 2K, 4K. About audio.
And then, yeah, for audio, I just use a basic headset as my microphone. I do have, like, a microphone that is separate, but
a standing mic?
Yeah, like a standing mic, but it sounds better when I use my headset because it's right next to my face.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna get a mic, I highly recommend being careful what you get. So, like, Blue Yetis are something a lot of people recommend, and I actually own one. That's what I'm talking on now, but I believe it's called a condenser mic. So what that means for people like me who may not be super savvy is you can fart in another room and it's going to pick up that sound. Like it's incredibly sensitive. So if you plan on making content, I highly recommend not getting a condenser mic for that reason. And actually, just because a mic is more expensive does not mean it's better. I've seen a lot that are super expensive, and then you hear the difference, and it's either not noticeable or sometimes it's worse. So those are just a couple things to consider when I didn't realize, because I spent a lot more on a Blue Yeti when I could have spent like a third of the price and not had to worry about it being a condenser mic.
Should have gotten a snowball, man. That's what I have.
Yeah, exactly. I should have.
So once you have like a character you want to do, you've got you're ready to record. I like to just open a notes pad on my phone and I just start jotting down like ideas I have for the episode. So like for the first episode, what do I want to do? I put down, okay, I want to craft a weapon, I want to enchant it, I want to go do it my first dungeon, whatever, and I get like an order in which I want to try to do everything, and I just note, like I put bullet points down. And then also when I create cinematics, I create like bullet points, and I'm like, here's what camera shots I want to get if I'm making a cutscene. I could make probably
because you go like really in depth with like the cinematic part of your like playthroughs, right?
Yeah, I think that adds a lot. It adds a lot to the story, and it also draws the viewer in. That's another point that I have, is you want to capture the viewer's attention like right at the start, because people are on YouTube watching whatever, and you know, when they click on a video, they want to be sucked right into that. So I think having a little intro, even if it's just simple, even if it's just like a shot of a landscape with just episode whatever appearing on the screen for like a few seconds, that like establishes, I don't know, I like it, like welcomes you into the story and everything.
Can I touch on, so obviously we've talked through making content for playthroughs, and something, I don't know if Kai, you've done this, I think you're very playthrough focused with your videos. I know that Liam and myself have made guide videos, which are kind of their own realm to work with. I think this is, for me at least, it's where you can thrive if maybe talking while playing isn't your cup of tea. Sometimes it can be difficult to kind of juggle both and be entertaining. That's something I struggle with. And so taking the time to like write your own script where you can look through it, comb through it, figure out what you like, and then you can record the script as many times as you need to working through it. That's where that kind of thing thrives. The first thing I want to recommend is, if that's something that you're interested in, I recommend always just having some background footage, like just background gameplay that you can use in any given video, because I think that, for me, is something I use quite a bit. And then also just doing it. I know it's kind of like the most obvious advice, but if you just try making content, it doesn't have to be great when you start. You know, when I first made my first playthrough video, I think the first like 5 I would not watch. Like me, if I didn't make it, I would not watch it because it wasn't good. You don't have to be amazing out the gate. Sometimes you figure out, oh, that didn't work, and you fail forward, or at least that's how I look at it.
We're actually going to discuss the Wildlander Patreon poll. Now, if you remember, before 1.2 had really sort of fully entered development, there was a Patreon poll put up where patrons of Dylan Perry, the man behind Wildlander, could contribute to a vote to determine the next big step in the development of Wildlander. Obviously, the winner was religion, because that is the update that we are getting. Today, we are going to talk about what didn't win. And for followers, there were 2 proposed followers. One was Lucian and one was Inigo. Lucian ended up winning. What do you guys think about this? Because I've played with both of these followers before. I've actually played with them simultaneously, and I don't know if I was expecting Lucian to win. What do you guys think?
I mean, I've never played with Lucian, so I am at a unique position where I truly know the right answer is Inigo, and you guys voted wrong. And I stand by that. Change my mind.
Just off the top of my head, I might pick Inigo just because Khajiit is like more funny to me, I don't know, more interesting.
Lucian, I think, does have a number of interesting mechanics where obviously, like most modded followers, he has thousands of lines of dialogue, which are all recorded to a general good quality, a decent standard of, audio quality, that sort of thing, where it doesn't sound like it's coming through just a horrible mesh filter or something like that, right? It sounds good. It's generally well written enough to the point where I think it fits in along with the rest of Skyrim, but there's just like more to Lucian, right? There's just more writing to Lucian. Take your typical Skyrim follower, you have someone like Lydia is obviously the normal example. Lydia has like what, maybe 20, 30 dialogue lines total?
Sworn to carry your burdens.
I am sworn to carry your burdens.
I am, yeah, exactly. She is sworn to carry your burdens. But if we go down to the Lucian page, you can see Lucian has over 5,000 lines of dialogue.
That's really crazy.
This is definitely, I would say, perhaps over the top, but coming at it from the perspective of a player, it means that instead of a follower just being a body that you can throw at your enemies, now a follower can be a friend, a companion, someone you actually enjoy being around, right? Someone with whom you could have some personality clash, that sort of thing, right? As opposed to before, where, most people just use Lydia as a meat shield. I don't know how to put this. I definitely like Lucian, but as a player, I found Lucian could be potentially just a little bit annoying from time to time. Do you guys understand what I mean?
Always saying something, or
he is always talking, but also maybe it's just the voice actor himself, who is the creator of the mod. Even though the voice acting itself is a good standard of quality, it can perhaps be a little bit I don't want to say grating, but just a little bit of that like sort of high-pitched whine comes in from time to time.
Because he's like a cowardly scholar in his other, at least when you meet him.
Something I do like about Lucian, although I've never played with him, but I have read up on it, is he's actually built to grow throughout the course of a campaign. Like, not just a little bit, not like, okay, he leveled up. Like, from what I understand, he kind of becomes much, much more powerful with time. So he scales with you a little bit, whereas he starts off like you do at level 1, where he's just useless. And I kind of like that aspect, because it feels like kind of like a return on your investment that I don't think you get with any other followers. They're either really good because they have perks, or they're really bad because they don't.
I need to think more about perks, because I just got a Rander as a follower, and he's like, I put him in heavy armor because I did some like testing with him, and he was getting running up to bandits with two-handers and getting one-shotted in light armor basically, and just dying, even though he's level 45. Like, he has 250 health, but he would just run up to an enemy once he was done casting spells, and he would just get smacked by like a warhammer and die, and I'd be like, what the heck? Like, this sucks. So after I tested with him, I was like, okay, I'm definitely keeping you in heavy armor.
I have a question for you about that, because I've been watching a number of your playthroughs. Was it your warhammer that he got hit by? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
So I have played with Inigo. I have played with Inigo in the past, and I would say between the two, I would probably have voted for Inigo, because as much as Lucian is an interesting character who does have a lot of dialogue for a lot of situations and that sort of thing, as far as his actual character goes, I think Lucian, I can find Lucian a little bit lacking in terms of being, interesting and having actually like good conversations with him, whereas Inigo is a very interesting character. I won't spoil it, because I do believe Inigo is cleared for addition at some point, but Inigo does have a very interesting story with some strange implications, but I really enjoyed learning about this character quite a bit. Not to mention, he's a lot more versatile than Lucian is. One of the main features of Lucian is that you can sort of teach him, right? You have this training system where once a day you can train him in a skill that you have much higher than him, right? Inigo is more flexible, even though Lucian has the ability to learn and change over time, all right? SK, you said you played with Inigo at some point. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so for one, and again, I've never played with Lucian, so I don't know comparison-wise, but
He said he's an expert.
I found Inigo to be like he like tugged at the heartstrings a little bit because you kind of, by your choices of dialogue and the way you treat him, it affects sort of your relationship a little bit. Are you kind of like a tyrant where you're just a complete POS to him and he's sort of like not necessarily a prisoner, but in that vein? Or are you like best friends who are kind of working together? The general theme is he believes he tried to kill you, and when you find him, he's like, hey, like, I know I tried to kill you, I owe a debt to you and I apologize, etc. And then that's what, you know, the premise for him following you.
Yes.
And from there, again, you kind of treat him however you will. I really liked that aspect. He is very sneaky, which is kind of cool because being someone who likes magic playthroughs, it's nice to have an NPC or a follower who isn't always in the range of your fireball. So, which is my problem. That's the only reason my horses don't constantly die, is I finally ended up with the Dark Brotherhood horse that health regens like crazy.
Shadowmare, right? Yeah, the one.
Yeah.
And even if you kill Shadowmare, he does respawn.
Oh, does he?
Yes. In both Oblivion and Skyrim, I believe, if you kill Shadowmare, he will respawn back at the pool outside of the sanctuary.
Oh. Well, now I'll kill him. Before I was scared to kill him, now I'm not.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Although, I'm not sure if he keeps all the stuff in his inventory, because you can put stuff in Shadowmare, can't you? I'm gonna be honest, I haven't actually done the Dark Brotherhood and Wildlander yet.
Yeah,
So.
had Shadowmere though.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely like the best horse, at least till you get Arvak.
Mm-hmm.
Way cooler.
These were the hot moments from the recent 2 streams for the Wildlander Community Hour. If you enjoyed and you want to see more, leave a like and consider subscribing. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe, Wildlanders.